Whenever you're ready, we can start. Okay, we are live, and I will call to order the meeting of the Lunenburg Select Board of Tuesday, April 13th, 2021. In accordance with the requirements of the open meeting law, please be advised that this meeting is being recorded and broadcast over the Lunenburg Public Access Channel. The Town of Lunenburg, in response to the COVID-19 pandemic, is currently following the guidance from the Lunenburg Board of Health, Massachusetts Department of Public Health, and the CDC regarding the virus and steps communities can take to prevent its spread. All town facilities are open during limited hours and by appointment only after those hours. In accordance with the governor's order suspending certain provisions of the open meeting law, General Law, Chapter 30A, Section 20, all public meetings are being conducted remotely. This meeting will be broadcast live through local access cable, on Facebook Live on the Public Access Facebook page, and will be able to be found on the Lunenburg Access YouTube channel within 24 hours after its conclusion. If you would like to join and participate in this meeting and you have a smartphone, computer, or tablet, you can do so by using the Zoom application. Tonight's webinar ID is 909-174-0347. If you don't have any of those devices and wish to join and participate by phone, you can do so by dialing 888-475-4499. And again, the webinar ID is 909-174-0347. For those on the Zoom application, when you want to speak, if you want to speak, please acquaint yourself with the raise your hand feature, which is under the reactions tab on my app, at least. I think most apps. If you're on the phone and you wish to raise your hand, please press *9. I will see your hand raised and will call upon you at the appropriate time. Regarding the agenda lists all the topics which may be discussed at this meeting and are those reasonably anticipated by the chair. Votes may be taken as a result of these discussions. Not all items listed may in fact be discussed, and other items not listed may also be brought up for discussion to the extent permitted by the open meeting law. We will do a roll call to order as I see people. Ms. Adams.
Here.
Mr. Dwyer.
Here.
Mr. Marino.
Here.
Mr. Jeffries.
Here.
And I am here as the chair. Madam Town Manager, you are with us.
Here, yes.
Okay, I will hand it over to our pledge leader, equipped with flag. Okay, Ms. Adams.
Okay. Thank you. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, do we have any public comment from the board this evening? Seeing none. Do we have any public comment from the public this evening? Okay. Also seeing no public comment from the public. All right, go right to announcements. The only announcement I'll have is that weather permitting, I understand that the Lunenburg Family Lions Club is going to be hosting, if that's the proper word, but they are organizing a cleanup of the gazebo area in town center. So if anybody, I don't have the time. I don't know if it's like 9 o'clock or 10 o'clock in the morning, but you can find it out on the Lunenburg Family Lions Facebook page. I encourage people, again, weather permitting. I understand the weather is questionable on Saturday, at least this far away, but that's the only announcement I have.
At 9 a.m., Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Mr. Jeffries. So 9 a.m. at Town Center at the gazebo. So, Madam Town Manager, do you have any announcements?
Somewhat of an announcement, something I wanted to read that I received from the police chief today.
Please. Yep.
Dear Ms. Lemieux, in the wake of the recent officer involved shooting in Brooklyn Center, Minnesota,
that claimed the life of Dante Wright, I wanted to assure you, the Select Board, and the community that the Lunenburg Police Department is committed to educating and training our officers to the highest level. Our supervisors will review the incident with their respective shifts, which will include the review of our use of force policy, when it is acceptable to deploy the taser, de-escalation techniques, and tactics that can be used during motor vehicle stops. All of our officers are qualified to carry the Taser X2, which is an electronic control weapon. The Taser X2 that our officers carry have yellow handles to help identify the weapon as a less than lethal option. The Taser X2 is purposely carried on the opposite side of our firearm to avoid confusion when deploying it during stressful situations. Officers are qualified and trained annually on the Taser X2, which includes a review of the department's use of force policy. Please be assured that the department is committed to proactive and continuous training for our officers to avoid catastrophic situations like the one that occurred in Brooklyn, Minnesota. If you have any questions, please feel free to reach out to me. Chief Thomas Gamble.
Thank you, Madam Town Manager. And my thanks to the chief for putting out that statement for yet another awful event in the country. Appointments, 7:05. We have a meeting with the Architectural Preservation District Commission regarding their inquiry about adding the old primary school building to the National Register of Historic Places, as was discussed at their previous meeting, and also about the annual town meeting article number 24 regarding an amendment to the Architectural Preservation District bylaw. So I see Mr. McGrath, so I will unmute him. And Mr. McGrath, if you will tell me who else has joined from your committee. I don't see Mr. Dwyer.
Can you hear me?
I can.
Mr. Nicastro was
Mr. Nicastro.
present earlier.
Oh yeah, he's still here. I just want to make sure. I didn't recognize the name.
Mr. Cochran and Mr. Dwyer are supposed to be present. If they're not here yet, they will be. But we could start.
Yeah, I'm asking Mr. Nicastro to unmute. I don't know if he's not in front of his device or not. Let me just check something here. Mr. McGrath, would you prefer that we wait for your other members? Because there are 2 interviews we can do in the interim.
Yes, that would work.
Okay, we will take the select board appointments of the Cultural Council first, then while we wait for the rest of his members, if that is okay with the board.
Yes.
All right, excellent. So we have 2 select board appointments to the Cultural Council. We'll take them in the order that they are listed on our agenda. Elise Wiley of 129 Pleasant Street, who has already started her video. I will unmute her. And I will welcome you to tonight's meeting, Elise. Can you hear us? We can't hear you. It shows that you're not muted, but it looks like your device is not. Yes, Ms. Adams.
I just needed to be unmuted.
Oh.
Occasionally I may need to mute tonight, and I'll just raise my hand if
Okay.
that occurs. A possible solution, I feel like, is sometimes logging out and then going back
Yeah.
in
Yeah, let's try
to
that.
cure it. Oh, that's what she just said. Yeah.
All right, so I don't know if Ms. Kemp is joining us tonight or not. That's our other appointment.
Yes, she is supposed to, but Elaine had given her a later time, given the 7:05 appointment.
Ah, okay.
Is that better?
That's much better.
Yay.
All right. It was trying to connect through I had a separate camera and it thought there was audio attached to that and there wasn't.
Got it. Well, welcome to the select board meeting.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
As always with candidates, when they come before us to be appointed, I always let them or ask them to introduce themselves, about who they are, their, anything you feel we should know about you, and also why you want to be part of the Cultural Council.
Sure. So my name is Elise Wiley. I moved into Lunenburg 2.5, actually almost 2 years ago on the dot. And I really like community. I feel very passionately about community just in kind of general. And so any town I've ever owned property in and felt like I had an investment in the community. I wasn't just going to be renting in here for, a month or two or however long. I've always wanted to be involved in. So that's part of the reason my application came forth to join the Cultural Committee. As far as which committee to join and which piece of the community I felt best, I guess, suited to contribute to being the Cultural Council. Currently working for myself as an artist, and the last town that I lived in and owned property in, I actually helped start the art walk for the Lewiston Auburn area of Maine, and that was a lot of fun. Great people, great community event. We got lots of people out of their homes and out and about and socializing, and that was amazing. And I'm a former. Most of my professional experience is with working with kids and teens. I'm a former summer camp director. So I really like getting kids involved in the community as well. I think that's a big part of just a thriving town and a thriving area, is to make sure that all ages are engaged and involved and happy and interested.
Excellent.
I'm happy to answer any other questions you have about me.
And I will ask that. I will open it up to the members of the board if anybody has any questions for Ms. Riley and Ms. Adams.
I always feel like I say the same thing, but it warrants it every time. I don't ever have questions. I just say thank you.
Well, thank you.
Anybody
Is your
else?
art behind you?
Yeah, that's some of my art behind me. I have a very tiny home here in Lunenburg, and so office, studio space are combined. And if you overhear anything, my husband is actually conducting a board meeting in the next room.
I have a very small home as well, and you find efficiencies everywhere.
Yes. Yep, make it work.
Any other questions from members of the board?
I just want to thank her for stepping up to fill this important role, and welcome to Lunenburg. It's a really, as I'm sure you're finding out, an excellent community, and it's exciting to have you as part of it. So thank you.
Yeah, absolutely. It's been awesome. The 2 years that we've been here. I wish we hadn't been in lockdown for the last one of them, but other than that, the things that I have seen have just been fantastic.
I think you get to say that you've been here for 1 year then, since 1 year
Yeah,
was in
I've
the
been-
lockdown, right?
Yeah, in Lunenburg for a year, in my house for another
Yeah,
year.
for 2 years. Yes.
Oh, I was going to make a motion if we're ready.
Before you do that, because I see Karen Kemp has joined too, and I have a letter that I was asked to read because one of the members of the Cultural Council was not able to be here tonight. So he wanted me to read this into the record before we did anything. It says, to the select board, I have spoken with both of the candidates that you will be reviewing this evening. As a longstanding member of the Lunenburg Cultural Council, I feel both of these candidates will not only make positive additions to our council, but also essential additions should you approve their appointments. They will become members numbers 5 and 6, and we must have 5 for a quorum. Without a quorum, all of our business of rewarding grants has been on hold, and all of our deadlines have been missed, and the state funds awarded to our town are in jeopardy. I have spoken with our Mass Cultural Council representative and have been assured that if we reach a quorum, we can proceed with the granting process despite our missed deadlines. I am very pleased that 2 citizens have stepped up to serve the town, and I'm looking forward to working with them as with the 2 new members appointed last week. 2 of our 6 members have terms that end shortly, so we could use several more volunteers. Sincerely, Peter McCarron. So Peter McCarron has been the chair. I don't know if he is still the chair, but he is a longstanding member, as he said, and welcomes and endorses / supports the 2 candidates. So just wanted that read into the record. Now, Ms. Adams, is the appropriate time.
Okay, sure. Thank you. I would make a motion that we appoint Elise Wiley to the Cultural Council, term to expire June 30th, 2024.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Okay, roll call vote. Ms. Adams,
Aye.
Mr. Dwyer,
Aye.
Mr. Marino,
Aye.
Mr. Jeffries,
Aye.
and an aye for myself. Congratulations. So all you need to do next is go to the town clerk's office when they're open, sometime between now and the end of day on Thursday, and get sworn in, and we will let the Cultural Council know that you have been appointed.
Fantastic. Thank you guys so much.
Good luck and thanks for stepping forward.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Let me know if there's anything else I can do to help the town.
Stick around for the town manager's report. There'll be lots of vacancies. You can choose another one.
Oh, we'll see. Like I said, I got to go replace the husband's got the kids and a board meeting at the same time.
All right.
All right.
All right. Thanks.
Thank
so
you.
much.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
And now we will go to Ms. Karen Kemp of 225 Burridge Street. Can you hear us, Ms. Kemp?
I can hear you. Hopefully you can hear me.
Yes, we can hear
Oh,
you.
good. Okay, great.
Okay, so again, many people probably already know who you are, but for those who don't, give them the joy of knowing who you are and tell us about yourself and why you want to be part of the Lunenburg Cultural Council.
Well, when I was working for the town, I was the children's librarian for 29 years, and I received a lot of cultural grants. So they were very, very helpful at that point in time. And the Friends of the Library would jump in when, if the money wasn't sufficient to get the program going. So we really did get to do all of the grants that we had, and they were very easy to apply for. They were wonderful to apply for. And you know, it really enhanced the summer programs that we had, or different, times a year. So I've lived in town. I grew up here. So I'm, worked for the town for many years, and I'm also an artist. So
Seems to be a running theme in the Cultural Council that everybody is an artist, and that's excellent.
I hope so.
I believe me, I'm not being anything but serious when I say that. So, well, thank you for putting your name forward. I will open it up to the board if anybody has any questions. Ms. Adams.
I'll just say thank you and hello. I still have nostalgia to some snow globes on your desk in the Ritter.
It's way back then.
I'm not sure if you collected them.
I did, yes.
I have like 500 or 600. And so I remember when I saw those there, I was like, holy smokes. So thank you.
No, that was great then, yes. So
Anybody else have any questions, comments?
Yeah, I'll comment as well. I've known the Kemps are the family I've known the longest since I've lived in Lunenburg. So certainly, I think this is an exciting opportunity. I've known you since I was 10 years old. So
that's great.
so this is an exciting opportunity to support your appointment to the Cultural Commission.
I think it makes me feel really old now too. So
But we're aging with you.
oh, yeah, everybody's aging with me. It's all good. Yeah.
And for anybody who doesn't know, the Ritter basement was the children's library. And so we would go right downstairs, and there was wonderful programs, and I wrote a book. God bless my misspellings. I think I still have that little
It was all good. You should definitely have kept that book. Yes.
Lonely Flower spelled
Yeah.
Lee.
So that's great.
Well, I thank you for, of course, continuing all the service you've done for the town, both in employed positions and all the volunteer positions that you've done over the years. I haven't known you since I was 10, and if I did, I would have the good sense not to say that anyway, unlike some of my colleagues. But I appreciate you coming forward and all the work you have done, and hopefully after this vote that you will continue to do now at the Cultural Council. So thanks.
Oh. I'm looking forward to it. If you appoint me, I'm looking forward to it. It's great. Otherwise,
Well,
you'll see me at all the elections.
We'll remove the mystery of whether we're going to do that or not in about 30 seconds. So I would entertain a motion on Ms. Kemp's nomination or appointment to the Cultural Council.
Sure. I would make a motion that we appoint Karen Kemp to the Cultural Council, term to expire June 30th, 2024.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Okay. Roll call vote. Ms. Adams,
Aye.
Mr. Dwyer,
Aye.
Mr. Marino,
Aye.
Mr. Jeffries,
Aye.
and an aye for me. And I think you know the route to the town clerk's office to get sworn in. You know all that.
Oh, definitely.
We will let the council know, and we wish you the best of luck, along with your newest member, team of Ms. Wiley earlier.
Oh, that'd be great.
So, good luck.
All right. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Have a great
Thank you.
All
evening.
right. Okay.
Okay, so now we're going to come back to you, Mr. McGrath. And I don't know if Mr. Nicastro is with us.
Alonzo, there is one other appointment, and he seems to be on the line, Mr. Snyder.
Oh, okay, yes, okay. Well, before we get to you, Mr. McGrath, we have one more to wait for the rest of your thing. Hold on.
Sounds good.
Yes, I'm sorry. Thank you, Mr. Jeffrey. So Select Board appointment to the Green Community Task Force. Matt Snyder of 985 Flat Hill Road. I am unmuting Mr. Snyder. He has joined us via video.
Oh,
Good evening.
good evening.
If you have been watching or listening before this, you know exactly what I'm going to say, that we need you to introduce yourself, a little bit about you, a little bio, and why you want to be part of the Green Community Task Force. And I should say welcome on behalf of the whole board, of course.
Thank you. Appreciate it. So my name is Matt Snyder. I'm at 985 Flat Hill Road. I work in a construction firm. I'm now in the IT space within that firm, but I also am involved with our sustainability committee and very much interested in green initiatives. And so at the last town meeting, I heard our moderator's plea for folks to join Dave Blatt's little merry band of misfits. And I sent him a text and said I'd be interested in throwing my name in. So I'm interested and had been kind of auditing, I guess, some of his committee work and seeing what he's been up to, what they've been up to, and looking to lend a hand and participate. It's my first foray into anything other than attending town meeting and casting my vote. So looking to get a little more involved.
Excellent. Well, we appreciate that service at town meeting as well. So thank you. I will open it up, Ms. Adams.
Sure. Welcome. And are you aware that this appointment may be indefinite? There's not a term to expire.
I am now.
Okay. We covered that last week during appointments. It was just a nuance that task forces may not have an end date. So it's just something to be aware of.
Okay.
I also want to thank Mr. Snyder for stepping up. Mr. Blatt and I work together on another committee, and he's one of the most pragmatic and energetic people I've come across in public service. So I'm sure you will have a great time with him. And I believe we appointed Mr. Passios to the committee as well last week. So I'm sure you'll have great company there. So thank you for stepping up and the skill set and the background that you offer to the community.
Thank you.
Any other questions, comments for Mr. Snyder? Despite the comments that it has no end date, we will not ask you to sign anything in blood, so don't worry.
And there was being facetious.
I know. Okay, so I thank you too, of course, for stepping forward, and I'm glad that I think the town moderator will be happy to know that his words have influenced someone. So that's good. That will hopefully provide him with enough energy to say it again at this town meeting for those vacancies we still have. And I would entertain a motion on Mr. Snyder's appointment to the Green Community Task Force.
Sure, I would make a motion that we appoint Matt Snyder to the Green Community Task Force.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Okay, roll call vote. Ms. Adams,
Aye.
Mr. Dwyer,
Aye.
Mr. Marino,
Aye.
Mr. Jeffries,
Aye.
and an aye for me. So again, you want to go visit the town clerk's office when they're open, your next availability, get sworn in, and then we will alert the Green Communities Task Force, if they don't already know, that you have been appointed.
Great. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Good luck on the task force. Okay, Mr. McGrath, without further delay.
So I don't have a quorum, but I can speak for the commission. If
Okay,
you like. I think I can clear up some things and answer questions that we've had in the past, or you've had also.
and it's okay if you don't have a quorum, because we're not asking you to vote on anything, and we invited you as a discussion point, so that's fine. I have
Right.
also unmuted Mr. Nicastro, who is on with us. Mr. Nicastro, can you hear us?
Yes, can you hear me?
I can. We can.
All right. I'm trying to get
So-
some video going here.
All right.
First, Mr. Chair, if I may, I'd like to speak on a few of the issues.
Oh, sure. We're gonna split it into two. So let's take the two items one at a time. So in the order they were listed on the agenda, let's talk about putting the old primary, or the discussion about at your last meeting that you had about putting the old primary building and adding it to the National Register of Historic Places. Let's start with that topic first.
Okay. Let's see.
And if you would like to start, I would allow you that privilege.
On the issue of nominating the school for the National Register, the commission, being proactive, discussed the idea with the concept that the town or a future developer would be able to receive grants and tax incentives for restoration. The town, as owner of the school, would need to apply for the nomination.
That is our understanding as well. We had, to my board, I think there was an opinion from our town council about what the process of how this would happen, as Mr. McGrath has said, that it would generally the property owner, which in the case of this property would be the Board of Selectmen, holds it for the town, would need to request it to be or apply for the application to be part of the National Register of Historic Places. I don't know if there's any. I didn't know whether the commission was aware of that or not, and I don't know if any members of the board my board want to speak to that, or they have any questions about that process. We have not fully discussed this as a board, whether we would be for or not for this. The topic has never arisen before. So, Ms. Adams.
Sure. I was wondering if you could provide more detail about the aspect of the types of grants or examples of communities that have gotten grants with a building that is registered versus unregistered.
The question is to me.
To anybody who
Sure.
could provide information about that answer.
I can put together a packet for you if you like, or for all the members of the select board with the types of grants, tax incentives, the application, what the process is, as well as other communities that have utilized it.
Thank you.
Mr. Jeffries.
My understanding is that the Ritter Building and Town Hall are older buildings. Are those listed as national on the National Registry of Historical Places.
The Ritter in the town hall?
Yes.
I'm not sure on that. I don't know.
Yeah, I think it would be good to know, just because this subject has come up, it would be good to know what buildings are on there.
Yes, I'll get that information for you, Mr. Jeffries.
Thank you.
And I realize you're answering his question, but of course, just send it to the entire board too.
Yes.
Anybody have any other question about that particular subject?
So, as a process question, I guess, is the intention tonight to discuss whether or not this board would like to pursue that option?
I personally, I mean, we're just introducing it, and some of the questions that were just asked, we don't have information of. Ms. Adams asked a question, and you actually as well. So just until we have some of those, I mean, we can certainly discuss it, but not discuss it with the intention of voting on anything on the first night we discuss it. I'd want to know a whole lot more about what the intent was and what we'd be trying to do.
Yeah, maybe I didn't understand the answer to that second part, which is what was the intent for this inquiry?
Well, Mr. Nicastro has his hand up. I don't know if he wants to answer that question or he has a question or a comment about something else.
I have a comment about something else, sir.
Okay. Do either of you have an answer about what the intention is of the APDC to request this or to discuss this being added to the National Register beside what Mr. McGrath has already said? Is that it would allow for grants? Is there any other reason, or is that the reason?
That's the main reason, to allow for funding for development.
Okay. Mr. Nicastro.
Yes, sir. So I did some research on my own from the Mass Historic Commission. So we've missed the date, the application date. The application date was March 19th for turn-in, and they start awarding grants sometime in July. Last year, round 26, they had $800,000 worth of grants they gave out to communities for their buildings. And they can range from anywhere from $5,000 to $3,000 to $7,500 to $100,000. I downloaded an application and I forwarded it to the members of the APDC to look over. I really want to try and see if I can get some money for the state. I'd like to see if we can get something for the building if the town lets me. There's a whole page on the Mass Historic Commission's website about grants. It seems pretty straightforward. I know just from what Richard has shown me, other towns and cities have got grants for older buildings from the state. And to me, it's worth a shot before we say no, don't condemn the building. I mean, next application probably won't be until end of this fiscal year for submission for next year's dates. So that's the only problem.
Understood. If you could provide in an email to the board the link to the Mass Historical that gave out these grants, so we can look it up ourselves to follow along with that would be great. And also,
and I could
the application too. If you could forward the application. That
was my plan, to send everybody the application. We talked about it at the last meeting. It's a very involved process. There has to be some input from the town on this thing, but I'm willing to go to bat, see what we can do.
I appreciate that. So I think the answer to your question, Mr. Jeffries, is that, I mean, this is just an opening introduction to this topic. And as Mr. Nicastro said, there's no immediate urgency because the funding round for this year seems to have passed the deadline. So we have time to discuss this. in more fuller detail as we get more of these information that we're requesting back, and they research it a little more as well.
Thank you.
I see Mr. Burney has joined. I don't know if he has anything he wants to add. I assume he would raise his hand if he wanted to add anything, but I just wanted to acknowledge that. Okay, any other thing about the National Registry or National Register? I apologize. Okay, so let's go to issue number 2, and we wanted you as a commission to know what the final wording and what the intent was for the annual town meeting warrant article number 24. Madam Town Manager, did you submit it to them what the final wording was, so they should have it?
We did, yes.
Again, I know that you discussed this at your last meeting, and there seemed to be some uncertainty about what it would cover. The one thing I noticed that was discussed at your meeting was, you know, if this were voted in, that private residences would look to override the commission on any decisions. And I want to ensure you that it won't be available to them, because this modification or this addition to the bylaw would be strictly for town-owned buildings and town-owned property. It would not apply to private property. So that appeal process for private property would remain in the courts as it does for all other kinds of decisions that can be appealed, but it's only the town property and town buildings that would apply in this case. The intent, as I think Mr. Dwyer, Cullen Dwyer, noted, was it came to our awareness that, and it's not happened yet, so there has been no determination by your commission on anything, but we realized that in the case that there would be the possibility that a town building may be denied a certificate of alteration or certificate to alter, at which point the only appeal process that the town would have under the current bylaw would be to go to the courts, where in effect the town would be suing itself. And we wanted to avoid that possibility, which would of course be awkward at best and costly at worst. So we wanted to add this possibility as a provision. That's why it was added in here. I, for one member, take this, what it's looking to do, take it very seriously, and it really looks to be a last resort, not a first resort, and very carefully and precisely carving out a power that the town could have over its own properties. That is my intent in supporting this amendment or this addition to the bylaw. I just wanted to be clear about that. Ms. Adams.
Just in regards to discussing the article, not just amongst ourselves, but also with the APDC, is I personally feel like I'm struggling with the idea of creating a rule that's different for the government than it is for the people. I feel like if there's a problem with a process, then it should just be corrected for every building involved, because it's more about protecting the buildings than it is about the owners of the buildings. And so giving some owners, in this case the town, a privilege that other people don't have, I'm concerned with, because there may be an individual, and you mentioned that courts would be costly for the town. Well, courts will be costly for the private homeowner that is also struggling with a need they may have. And so I feel like if we're going to adapt something or look at the process for a change, we shouldn't be carving out government as a group that has its own rules.
Mr. Jeffries.
I think we can. So I think that what I hope, I did send an email just to disclose to the board. I did, after watching the last meeting, I did send an email as a citizen of town to the members of the APDC to kind of just clarify, I think, some of the questions that came up at their meeting. But one of those clarifications was, as Mr. Alonso just stated, one of the difficulties in the town is that the select board has a responsibility of developing legal strategy for all lawsuits that the town is engaged in. And so the obvious conflict is, for example, if the planning board makes a decision and then that decision, someone appeals that decision, then that's when this board gets involved just to support the planning board in that legal action. And the same would be true for an APDC decision. I think in contemplating how this would look, the select board would act as both plaintiff and defendant. And that just makes no sense. And I think that many taxpayers at home, in my opinion, I think that this may have been something that wasn't fully contemplated in the process of developing the APD. And sometimes, even with the best of intentions, we may overlook certain things, and this may just have been an oversight. So I think the intention is to try to create a realistic appeals process for the town that doesn't expect a select board to be on both sides of a lawsuit.
Anybody else want to speak to this? Mr. McGrath.
On the warrant article, it says the aggrieved party, but doesn't say specifically the town manager is appealing the process. It sounds like anybody can do it.
So that was actually a point of discussion at our last meeting, and about that specific phraseology of if that should specifically be the select board who has that decision, or if it should be brought into an aggrieved party. And we agreed, I believe it was a 3-2 vote on aggrieved party. And I think the idea behind that, as is written now, is that there could be an occasion where, for example, the select board presents something to the APDC that then gets denied, and then the select board may decide not to pursue it any further. But there may be a citizen in town who says, no, we get to have a say in all this stuff, and I want to pursue it. And within that very limited window of, I think it's 3 months to 9 months, within that very limited window, I think it would provide them with an opportunity to do so. But I think the intention is that the aggrieved party overwhelmingly is intended to be the select board representing the town.
We did have a long discussion about this at our last meeting. I was very open with my board that I would probably move to amend this and give the whole town a vote on who should be able to do this. I personally believe strongly it should be very restricted, and it should be the Board of Selectmen, who basically are the owners, except in the case of the school committee on school property, are the owners of the town property. So I feel it should be more restrictive than what it currently is in the warrant. Anybody have any other questions or comments, discussion points? Mr. McGrath.
I have a comment from Mr. Cullen Dwyer on the warrant. Concerning the warrant, he says, first of all, it assumes that the appeal process only applies to when the APDC denies a CTA and that the aggrieved party is the applicant. In truth, anyone might be aggrieved by the APDC's decision whether to permit or deny an alteration. The purpose of an appeal process is to ensure that the APDC has made a decision that is fair, unbiased, and consistent with the APD bylaw, guidelines, and mission. These should be the criteria for an appeal. An appeal needs to be reviewed by a disinterested party that is familiar with the bylaw and the APDC's regulations and guidelines. The appeal process should not be to accommodate any applicant who simply did not get what they wanted. If the APDC's decision is proper and regular according to the APD bylaw, the decision should stand. It is better not to have a preservation bylaw at all than to have one with an appeal process that allows a decision by popular vote that is contrary to the bylaw. Finally, the amendment allows anyone to bring their own individual complaints and concerns before the general town assembly. This is certain to make our town meetings even longer and a greater burden to the assembly. The whole purpose of the town's boards and committees is to apply the laws passed at town meeting with informed expertise. To take that process away from the committee undermines its function. And to then put it before the general town assembly contributes to the town meeting's dysfunction. If the select board wants to craft an amendment for an appeal process, they should look at the appeal processes for other boards and departments. The only one that comes to mind for me is the planning department, which has a whole separate board to deal with appeals, the zoning board of appeals. Otherwise, what is the appeal for a party aggrieved by the fire marshal or the conservation commission or the building department? I'm not sure, but I don't think there is any appeal process for them. If you don't like the decision, too bad, you simply have to live with the law. The appeal process thus under consideration is completely unprecedented and for good reason.
Thank you. Mr. Bernie.
I mean, I can run through the appeal processes for all of the boards and departments outside that Mr. McGrath just ran through. The planning board appeal process is through the courts. If it's a building code issue, it would be through the BBRS, the Board of Building Regulations and Standards. If it's a zoning issue, that's what the zoning board is for. The zoning board doesn't review or overturn planning board decisions, and the Conservation Commission is also a court action or through the DEP for superseding orders. So all of those groups have appeals processes.
Thank you. Okay. I mean, this will probably generate some level of discussion at town meeting. To the notion that the town as a collective should not exclude themselves. I mean, municipalities are excluded from certain applications of laws in many regards, so it's not unprecedented. And again, it's not like we don't have an appeal process. We certainly have the ability to go to court, but it just seemed to be something to prevent an impasse where in the case might be that, again, no action has been taken, but if a CTA is not given and that CTA included a demolition and the town and the APDC is like, no, we won't allow that because of the host of reasons they might give, but the town won't vote because the town votes to fund things. If they don't vote to fund it, then we're at an impasse between the town and the town, and therefore we have an issue. And if somebody can find a better way, to get that impasse resolved, I'm all ears, but I don't know of any other. And certainly the town going to court against the town seems to be a not advantageous way. That's already there. So we don't even have to, no change has to be made. We would just be forced to do that. And we're trying to investigate methods that may avoid that. That's all. But I guess this will be an issue for the townspeople. Mr. McGrath.
I'd like to speak to that warrant also. The APD bylaw was meticulously crafted by the planning board with a huge amount of time and effort put into it. Rebecca Lantry and I were delegated to the planning board as advisors for the historical commission. The planning board went over every word, every sentence, every paragraph, discussing how each word related to the other. Often they had to go back to previous pages when the sentence on the present page brought something into question. There were many debates and discussions, and they worked as an excellent team to craft that document. There were public hearings, meetings with the select board, and the select board approved the document, the bylaw, and it was approved at town meeting. The planning board was well aware that the old municipal buildings were in transition when they drafted the AP bylaw. To say that it wasn't intended for the APDC to have final say in the appeals process, demolition by town buildings is erroneous. It was discussed. They wanted the APDC to be the final say because the ED was the boss to protect contributing property APD. So the APDC was given final approval with the appeals process.
Thank you. Any other comments? Anybody else weigh in? I want to make sure, especially that, I wanted your commission to be, aware of what the wording was and to not make it a surprise on annual town meeting day. So, what our position is and what will be discussed. Yes, Mr. McGrath.
So the warrant is going to be as written, right, with the generality of the aggrieved party allowing anybody to protest a decision by the APDC. Is that correct?
So 2 points. So it does include the aggrieved party. Yes. There was a discussion that I had, and we can certainly discuss more, and I'm sure it will be discussed more at town meeting floor, that I had with town council about who constitutes an aggrieved party and how do they claim such a status. And that's not a simple question to answer. So there is that ambiguity. As I told you, I think I would remove all ambiguity and very limit it to only the select board. A majority of the select board can do it. So, but yes, the answer to your question is yes. What you are reading has gone to the printer. That's what everyone will receive in their mailbox concerning the town meeting warrant.
Yeah, thank you.
Okay, any other discussion on this topic? I want to thank you, Mr. McGrath, and you, Mr. Nicastro, for joining us tonight and for providing your input. We will look on the National Register questions. We will look for your input and your emails regarding the questions that were asked tonight, so we can have further discussion on that.
Excellent. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Okay. Current business. Discussion about the Monty Tech concept drawing for the old primary. That was in our Google Drive, and Ms. Adams, you are our liaison to this committee. So I think, can you describe what this diagram is and what it's showing? Hold on, let me unmute you.
Oops, hold on, let's get the hand down.
Yep.
Oh, okay. Honestly, I was just emailed these pictures by Heather. It's the first I had seen of them through my email. So I can't describe the picture. I didn't generate them. I wasn't involved in the concept. I visited the site with the teacher from Monty Tech and 2 students, and I walked the property with them and told them we were interested in a park on the front end, more green space on the back end. Municipal parking was a goal. I described to them the property lines, that the Verizon building and the Historical Society were private, and there was a private home. That School Street was a true road that was an egress to a private home. We talked about the trees that lined the property, the goal to hopefully have the opportunity for some type of music in the rear. And I explained to them where farmers markets currently were on the Ritter. And so I just walked them through the whole site. They requested after that meeting for more information on the property lines and to better understand the space. And I know that Heather emailed the teacher at Monty Tech any data she had on the property surveying that had been done on the property in the past. And so these pictures are as new to me as they are to everybody. I just saw them in my email the other day.
So you met with them only once in this?
Correct. We emailed quite frequently. I'd check in with Heather. Had she heard anything? It was largely dependent upon two students with a schedule at Monty Tech that they met intermittently. And I don't know if Heather, if you have any more input, because I know communication was often going through you, but this was all they provided. And I'm grateful for their offer to help, but they were just students at a school. So I don't think we should be too harsh on it. I think we should be grateful.
The only thing I can add is prior to Selectman Adams' site visit to with the teacher and the two students, I did speak with them after the initial workshop that the board had on the primary site, explained that kind of the vision was for passive open space area that could be used for a farmer's market and possibly concerts and that such.
I was hoping for something with more detail, maybe a variety of options, but the fact we do have true engineering funding as an article for town meeting. And I mean, that's where I think we need to head in order to really get a handle on the potential for the space. You know, I think this was a nice start at getting some imagination involved, but I was expecting, you know, more detail or maybe a variety of options, but it was hard to meet, you know, in the time of COVID. I think them having their students meet with the general public, we were masked, it was outdoors, it was very cold. And I'm not sure if we truly set expectations for what we were looking for, but I think I spent about an hour with them describing all of the aspects of the property and of our vision the best I could.
Okay, I'm pardon my silence for a second. I'm trying to share this. Let me see where this is.
But Heather, we do have the article for the engineering for spring meeting, and we decided on a price for that. So the pro bono free help of students from Monty Tech greatly appreciated, but I think did we apply up to $30,000?
Yes.
Engineering through an article, and that's where we obviously would be heading in a professional direction at that point. And I think this was a awesome opportunities for these students, and I think they probably got a lot out of it. I know Monty Tech's collaborated well with the town in other spaces.
Okay, so here is the drawing. Where is this file? There we go.
So while you're pulling that up, I have a
Yep.
question for Selectman Adams. So I mean, I think that I understand it's a student population. I think that as I recalled our discussion on Halloween, though, I think that I think maybe I was under the impression that what we were striving for was some kind of, you know, really basic rendering based on the vision that the five of us agreed to on Halloween when we did that site walk. So that way, when we go to town meeting, we have that kind of real basic concept for people to be able to visualize at least some kind of idea. But I'm a little confused on why the building is still depicted in this. How was that conversation?
Yeah, that's my biggest concern as well.
I'm telling you that this is the first I saw these pictures the other day in an email. Limited access to the students. I obviously wasn't welcomed at Monty Tech. We set up the one visit. That's all I was given. I very specifically relayed our vision and hopes for Town Greens. I talked to them about the 4 years I've advocated for it and all the meaning it would have to have a space that was open and easier for band concerts and tree lightings. I asked them prior to going back to Monty Tech if they'd loop through the center of town so they'd get a sense for the current gazebo, the lack of parking, so they could sort of, see the space we use versus the potential we could have. The students were delightful. They talked about how colonial the town felt. They liked that the Historical Society was there. When they asked about the building, I gave them the honest answer. We didn't have permission to demo it, that it was a hope of many people that in terms of municipally owned buildings, it's currently not inhabitable. And so I said what I would probably do in terms of imagining it, if that were to be grass versus a building, that would make the project be able to be conceptualized one way or the other. And so I said, in terms of if you're visualizing an open air amphitheater or parking, not to probably commit much to that space until we can see it as grass versus building. I mean, even tonight, I was surprised, when we were talking to the APDC, nobody on our board was completely honest that we have very extensively talked about demolishing the building, which is in contrast with historically preserving it. I feel like in the past few months, I'm the only one who mentioned it has potential as something like town hall. I think there's things about that building that we have not completely settled. And so when they asked about the building, they could clearly see the state it was in. I said, we don't have permission to remove it, but ideally it would be part of the open space plan. I was only given one visit with the teacher and the students. And like I said, I went into extensive detail about all the different abutter circumstances and all the different visions we had. And that was my opportunity to share. I can't control what they gathered from the event, but I tried my best.
So I'm trying to allow Heather to share this, just so we see it, so people at home can see it, I should say.
I'm not sure what our expectations of these students were, considering we're about to pay a firm $30,000 to do the same thing.
I'm not, it's not the level of the drawing that's the problem. The problem is that we had a whole meeting on October 31st of last year to clearly discuss and unanimously discuss what our vision was of this property. And it clearly was not having the building there. And so therefore, just the basic concept of what our shared unanimous vision was not, it did not make it to this drawing.
I completely concur that this is, very much drawing what was there. And these were children we were working with, and they probably didn't completely comprehend the extensive changes we were looking for. I think they're kids in a class, and from a mother that has had 4 kids going through hybrid learning and all of the remote learning. Not only were these kiddos trying to accomplish something based on a one-time visit with me, but a lot of access to school and access to teachers was really super complicated this spring. So I really don't think it's appropriate to create negativity towards these Monty Tech students that were given a fairly small project. They were given one meeting, and then who knows what their circumstances were on their end. They were delightful. They were energetic. The teacher was very kind. And they probably got a lot out of it on their end, but I don't think we ever intended to get too much out of it on our end, which is why we have an article to seek $30,000 for professional help. And so I don't know what the cloud of negativity is. I think it's great that they tried, but communicating and managing within schools. If this were not COVID, I would have gone into Monty Tech. I'm a lifelong learner, nerd. I would like to have seen where they were working, what they were doing. I haven't had access to my own kids' classrooms. And so working with a school right now is a complicated thing to do. I think it was about 12 degrees the day we met. We were all masked and they took their notes and this is what they came up with. And they didn't understand the vision. I mean, I've been talking about the vision of the green space there for a long time. So the existing school, that's just something they chose to represent. I'm not sure what all the implications are. I made a citizen petition article to try to demo the building. So I don't know.
Mr. Dwyer.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Looking at the sketch, I think it will actually be very helpful if we can bring this to, if town meeting decides to move forward with the engineering, to use this kind of as a basis that we can mark up to show the things that we like and we don't like to the engineering firm, so they get a better idea of what we're looking to do as a board. And I think it's fantastic that Monty Tech provided what they did. I think at least gives people an idea of the size of the site relative to the school that everybody can drive by and whatnot. So it's not perfect, but it's a starting point. I think we can use this as a basis to mark up and share our ideas with the town, as well as whatever firm we bring on to help us move this forward.
I love the fact that you said that they weren't honest with it.
So I don't know, just to be clear, I don't know that anybody was casting any negativity on the students who drew the drawing. That wasn't certainly wasn't my intention. I'm saying, and
Right.
yes, I understand people.
Again.
What?
Hold on, who is talking here?
Mr. McGrath.
Oh, sorry, I didn't know I was still on.
Okay. My concern is that the one piece, I understand that they're students, but they're also high school students, and I don't, I'm sure they could understand the idea that we want a plan for this, what it might be without the school. Like, that is a sentence that I don't think a high school student would not understand. I don't know why that wasn't conveyed. And it seemingly wasn't conveyed to them, but that was the thrust of the whole meeting that we had. And yes, I didn't expect engineered drawings from them. And that's the quality of the drawing is that this type of drawing is fine. I have no problem with the drawing. It just doesn't seem like basic information was conveyed to the
Chair, if I may, can the town manager please take over? She communicated far more with Monty Tech than I did. And so I'm not sure where the missing link is, but I would love, emails when she shared all the emails with me, but if she has any insight onto what you feel the missing link is, I would appreciate some feedback from her.
I made it clear from the beginning that what the intent of the board was, that they were looking eventually to demolish the building, to create open space and a park area there at the concert, with concert area and farmers market, with additional parking. When I received the sketch and I passed it along to Selectman Adams and put it in the Google Drive for the rest of the board for tonight's meeting, I did reach out to the teacher to let him know that the board would be discussing it tonight and to provide feedback and input. And I did ask him, I said it shows that the existing school is still there, and that it doesn't show additional parking like we discussed. So I'm not sure why either the existing school is there, because that I made it clear when I spoke with the instructor and the student.
Yeah, I see that they have shown all the buildings that are obviously in that area. And all I can think of that I relayed to them is that we don't have permission to remove it, but our goal is to have a town green. And I have enthusiastically advocated for that for a long time, and put a lot of effort into a citizen demolition potential. So I would like to see that as grass potentially as well, although I appreciate the efforts of historic preservation. I think I've made a lot of my efforts for an improved, safer, more ADA compliant green space very clear, but I don't think it's worthy of so much. I think Todd summed it up very well, that it shows the size of the area. We can certainly conceptualize shifts in parking or, more green space if the existing school was demoed. It actually points to the difficult reality that we do have an existing school. It is under APDC. We don't know the outcome of the change of the article. They are currently trying to register it as a historic building and get grants to fix it. So I think it's with great irony that it is sitting on our town green, because it is indeed on our town green.
Okay, so aside from the fact that I don't know what that last sentence meant, I guess we are where we are with this. So this did not further, in my mind, does not further our discussion about what we can or can't, or give a vision of what we discussed on that Halloween last year. So, Madam Town Manager, if you can make me the host again, please. Thank you.
Mr. Chair.
Mr. Jeffries.
So I just want to respond to a comment about honesty. I think that we met with the Architectural Preservation District a short while ago, month and a half ago. I thought we had a very honest conversation with them. I think it was pretty clear to all of them in that meeting that the vision that we had moving forward was to tear the building down. I don't think that there was any confusion on that point. So I take a little offense to saying that, the purpose of our conversation with them tonight was to review the APD with them as noted on the agenda, the article that we are proposing to change, answer any questions that they have, and then also to discuss with them about their inquiry of adding the property onto the National Historic Register and clarifying that they do require this board to have some input into that process. So, I don't think that tonight was about rehashing an old issue. And again, I think that we all try to do our work in as honest of a way as possible. So I take a little offense to the phrase that we were dishonest here tonight.
Okay, so there's not much more to discuss on this topic. We will have to just bring this to town meeting, the article, and go forward.
Do you want me to give feedback to the Money Tech instructor and students that
Sure.
if they were able to do the rendering any different in time for town meeting?
Yeah, that it was our intention from the start that the existing school would not be there, and we wanted to know what designs they could come up with. That basically took into consideration three things, I think, at that meeting. There was a front park, then there was middle parking, and then there was no school, and then it would house the farmers market.
So front parking, if you're looking at the diagram.
So a front park, not front parking. So
Right.
where the current
park.
a front part, a green space that you could sit and everything in the front area, which would now be in front of the school.
Mhm.
And then there would be rear parking, some rear parking behind where the school would be, that would lead to either the farmers market or the gazebo concert area, as was shown. That was what was discussed.
Okay.
Okay. All right. Current business number 2, discussion of the TCP Design Committee Annual Town Meeting or warrant article number 26. So. Uh, 26. Just for people at home, do we have an amount?
We do not.
Okay. To see if the town will vote to raise and appropriate or transfer from available funds a sum of money for the design and engineering to consolidate town offices, school uses, and community space at the building and or land known as the TC Passios located at 1099 Massachusetts Avenue, shown on Assessors Maps 060, Lot 055, and any and all incidental and related costs, including but not limited to site evaluation, engineering, and final design services, thereby allowing the town to consider alternative uses for said town offices, school uses, and community space that may include demolition of the existing building. So that is the article as written. That's what people will get in their warrant in the mail. Do we have anybody from the TC? I guess we have our own Mr. Jeffries, and I guess we have Mr. Passios. So
If you want me to comment. So I think that the board deferred to town meeting on this because we're waiting for the total to come in. I don't know if there's anything new tonight to discuss, because we did have a discussion when the TCP Design Committee was here about this exact verbiage. So the only thing that we're waiting for is that total dollar amount. At the last TCP Design Committee, we also did not have that dollar amount. So there's really nothing to contribute here.
So that committee hasn't come up with what they want as far as an amount. They haven't deduced how much money they need to do this.
Well, the conversation's happening between with the town manager, with Mr. Roy, the chair, and with the design firm. My understanding is that they did present a number over to the two of them, but that number was a scope that seemed to be much bigger than what we were looking for. So that number itself has not been presented to the TCP Design Committee. So I don't actually know what that amount is, but I think that what we're in the process of is negotiating that limited scope and negotiating that price.
Okay. So there's not much to discuss tonight, Ben, because the whole process is going to be, the whole discussion is going to be largely around the sum of money.
Correct.
I mean, depending on what that number is, just to keep the momentum going, it makes sense to continue, but of course I'd need to know at what price before I could support anything directly. I'm very concerned that, we may have come this far and now we're going to stall. And again, we're going to be back at square one, which is that nothing is moving on anything. So
yeah, our expectation is that by the 21st, there's a finance committee that's coming up on the 22nd. So our expectation is that we will have that number by the 21st at the upcoming TCP Design Committee meeting, that we will discuss it then, because it needs to also be discussed by the finance committee on the 22nd.
okay,
So we do expect that to be forthcoming.
fair enough. Anybody else on this subject? Okay. Approval of March 9th, 2021 minutes. Does everybody read them? I was not at this meeting, so I cannot vote on this. But if no one has any modifications or changes, I would entertain a motion regarding the minutes of March 9th, 2021.
Or I'd make a motion that we approve the minutes of March 9th, 2021.
Do I have a
Second.
All right, roll call. Ms. Adams,
Aye.
Mr. Dwyer,
Aye.
Mr. Marino,
Aye.
and Mr. Jeffries.
Aye.
And again, I abstain because I was not present. Warrants, and no warrants this past week. Action items. Anybody have any action items? No. Committee reports. Anybody have any committee reports?
I guess I did have an action item or something along those lines.
Go ahead.
Sure. Just in terms to the town manager, in regards to communicating with Monty Tech, I think it's very easy to me as I sit and digest it. They asked about the building and I simply said, we hope to demolish it, but we currently have no permission to. And so I think that's why it got left there. So I don't want to pass anything along to them that they've done something wrong, because if you think of that piece of communication, they held on to that, maybe put it in their notes that the town doesn't have permission to knock it down. And whether it was a misunderstanding in terms of what our vision really was, it's clear to me why they may have left it there. They said, what is the intent of this building? And I said, we currently don't have the permission to knock it down, but if it were, then it would be part of the green space. And we went through the, front park, parking. I'm not even sure they really showed that front area, because I don't think, from the emails that I remember seeing, I don't think that they completely understood all the municipal land that goes with where the old public safety building was and the Ritter. And that's ultimately where I think the front park would be. And so I just want to relay that we don't cast any negativity on their efforts, because I think it's clear to see after only one meeting. I never after one meeting, I watched so many of the TCP BDC meetings and go back and forth with the architect. So if we were truly working with them, then after one look at a rendering, we would recommend our alterations. So I think what Select Board Member Dwyer said, that we certainly can show that we have this large piece of land and a lot to work with. But I definitely, the children were very sweet. And I know from my own kids, everybody's highly sensitive. I don't want to spread the message that we're unhappy, because it's clear in my reflection upon meeting that the building is a bit of a problem at this time, and they just digested some piece of the conversation and left it. So I know you talked about communicating, but I certainly hope we don't make students feel uncomfortable, because I can clearly understand where they saw the building there and became unclear about how to represent that. We can see that as a piece of grass without, harming their efforts.
And I would never communicate to them that we were unhappy with what they provided. I think, like you said, what they provided was their take on what the conversations were.
So what would our goal be, since we are so close to town meeting and we are asking for true engineering anyways?
I think initially when we asked Monty to do it for this class in particular, it ultimately was going to be in AutoCAD. And that was, so this initial rendering was the preliminary step to an AutoCAD, and then move on to, that was my understanding from the beginning.
Okay.
Of getting Monty Tech, particularly this class.
And
So-
did they set, in their final communications, did they say if they plan to enhance it or alter it or communicate more? Or was this sort of the students are done and they are at their final phase?
I did not get a response from the teacher, so
Okay, so maybe we'll see if they're still working on it. There's a bit of time.
But weren't you on these emails? I mean, you were designated as the contact point. Did they send things to the town manager without CCing you on these?
No, she would send them to me, and they asked me questions for things that they wanted from her, and she got them and sent them to them. So we did everything we could under circumstances. I just want to make sure we stay very positive and optimistic with it, because dealing with school and teenagers and everything, it's been a really complicated space for teachers and everybody. And I'm just happy we were able to have something happening at all. Teachers and students have been living upside down, inside out, backwards, forwards. And I feel like there's a little bit like of a negative feeling. And I just want to make sure we stay really positive with them.
I haven't heard anybody say display any negative feelings for the students, but you continually have said that. I'm not understanding where you're coming from.
No,
Who
I'm
else
just
did you-
saying, I'm saying when we communicate back to them, I don't know what our goal is because we're getting ready to go towards true engineering. And so the future of this space design doesn't lie with Monty Tech. It lies with the hopes that our article is passed to fund engineering with a professional firm. So I'm just confused what our position will be at this point forward.
Well, there's, again, to try to get the vision that we expected, that we would want, that was our goal to get a general plan of what the property would look like, sans school, and that's what we're looking to get. So if they can do that, fine. If they can't, I understand. I don't put any of this on the students. I want to be clear about that. So, we're not going to convey to them disappointment in them. I'm concerned about that the overall goal, which seems to be straightforward, wasn't conveyed to them. That's what is concerning to me. All right. Now, just a last note on that previous item about the TCP Design Committee. That there's one thing that this talks about, and that talks about, alternate uses, that the studying of what would happen with Town Hall and Ritter, my understanding. So again, I don't know if that generates any discussion on this article or not. It extends their charge to basically take those things potentially into consideration, as long as everybody's aware of that.
Yeah, I mean, I fully support that before we go to the town with any kind of article to demolish the building, that we should fully vet out any other potential uses, as all the questions that they asked us. It seems to be prudent to kind of vet all that stuff out. But I mean, it's been 20 years. I mean, I think that's simultaneous. We can walk and chew gum. We can work in one hand on what this vision can look like and what option A can be, and on another hand, we can look at ways to see if there's any opportunity to preserve the building. But I think decision time is coming.
Yep. Okay. All right. Old business. Any discussion on the fiscal 2022 budget, the capital plan, the financial forecast, or the annual town meeting warrant? Anybody have any questions or discussion points on any of those four things? Nothing has really changed since last week, but okay. And discussion on the consent calendar for the annual town meeting warrant article. Madam Town Manager, you had, I guess the Finance Committee had a discussion about this?
Yes, I met with the Finance Committee last Thursday, gave them the recommended articles that the board discussed last Tuesday and agreed upon. There was one objection to one of the articles to be included, and that was Article 27 for the amendment to the salary administration plan article. So I would recommend, since there was that one dissent, that be removed from the consent calendar. And I also brought up that if there were any additional articles that would be passed over, such as any collective bargaining agreements that weren't ready to be voted at town meeting, they would also be included in the consent calendar.
I have no objections to those points. I mean, if the Finance Committee is going to raise their hand and pull it out anyway, we might as well pull it out now for the salary admin plan. So,
and it was just one member of the committee. No one else had an objection to it, but they all agreed to.
except that I'd be afraid of the answer. I won't ask. Was any reasoning given? Because I guess it doesn't matter. So, anybody have any other
discussion on it? That it should
discussion about adding positions that we're not necessarily hiring people for? Really?
One of the positions is an added position for the sewer department. That was just to be clear. on that.
Okay. Onward and upward. Town manager report and COVID-19 update.
Okay. I don't have a report other than I'll announce the vacancies. There is 1 vacancy on the Architectural Preservation District Commission, 4 vacancies on the Bylaw Review Committee, 1 vacancy on the Historical Commission, 2 vacancies on the Housing Authority, 1 vacancy on the TCP Building Design Committee, 1 vacancy on the Senior Work-Off Program Committee, and 1 associate vacancy on the Zoning Board of Appeals. And interested people can find the application forms on our town website and complete them and send them to the Select Board's office.
If I may make a suggestion, Madam Town Manager, it might be a good idea to have a whiteboard there that as people enter for annual town meeting, that shows what the vacancies are, and have a pile of talent bank forms right there that maybe we could encourage people to fill out right there.
Sure.
Thank you, Tom. That's an excellent idea.
Thank
And
you.
we'll ask the moderator to do his spiel at the beginning again too.
Exactly. Okay,
So in regards to COVID-19 updates, that's more lengthy. So confirmed numbers from the Board of Health. As of April 9th, there were 739 positive cases. The state report showed 694 cases as of April 6th. There's been 1 death in town since the pandemic began related to COVID. This is an increase of 29 cases from April 2nd. Update on the regional vaccination site. It was announced today that the state has approved the Neshoba Valley Regional Vaccination Clinic, and it will be located at Clear Path for Veterans of New England, located at 84 Antonium Street in Devons. As far as information on the specifics of the clinic will be run, we haven't received that information. So we're working on setting up a meeting to discuss that and what's involved. So when that is available, it will be made available to the board. Updates from the state for numbers for the state of Massachusetts as of April 8th, there were 613,763 cases, 17,022 deaths, and 19,543,855 patients have been tested to date. As far as eligibility for receiving vaccines, as of Monday, April 5th, residents 55 and older with persons with one certain medical condition are now eligible to receive a vaccine at over 300 vaccination locations, including 269 pharmacy locations. With this group, more than 1 million additional residents will be eligible for vaccines in the Commonwealth. Anyone that was not in phase 1 or phase 2 will be eligible for a vaccine starting Monday, April 19th. You can find more information about vaccination sites and pre-registration by visiting vaxfinder.mass.gov. Today, the Food and Drug Administration and Centers for Disease Control and Prevention issued a statement regarding the Johnson & Johnson COVID-19 vaccine, recommending a pause in its use out of abundance of caution. The Department of Public Health is notifying all Massachusetts providers to pause administration of the J&J vaccine effective immediately. Mass dose allocation update. Last week, Commonwealth received 444,930 first and second doses as part of the state allocation. These figures do not include doses provided directly from the federal government to federal retail pharmacy program, federally qualified health centers, or community vaccination Center. These numbers include a one-time shipment of 108,800 J&J vaccines. Last week, first doses and second dose state allocations were distributed among providers as follows. Health systems and healthcare providers, excluding community health centers, received 163,960 doses. Regional collaboratives and local boards of health received 118,230 doses. Mass vaccination locations received 115,890 doses. Community health centers, state allocation only, received 31,350. Retail pharmacies, non-CVS, state allocation was 4,500. And mobile clinics supporting long-term care facilities, congregate care, affordable low-income senior housing, and homebound individuals received 10,000 doses. Weekly allocations are subject to change based on federal availability, demand from providers, and obligations to meet second doses. Providers have 10 days to use their doses and must meet specific performance thresholds.
Any questions for the town manager on this? Okay, thank you. So just so anybody who's listening, just so you're aware, so we're swapping our week off. So usually we have the last Tuesday of the month off, but we have swapped that. Next week, we will not have a meeting on April 20th, but we have swapped it with April 27th because next week is school vacation week, number one. And number two, we wanted to meet on the 27th, which is the last selectmen meeting before annual town meeting on that Saturday. So we wanted to keep that open in case anything changed in preparation of the annual town meeting. Annual town meeting, of course, is on May 1st at the middle school, high school auditorium. Starts at 9 o'clock. I think they open up their doors probably at 8 o'clock or to people to come and register or sign in, I should say. I'm assuming we are doing a full COVID protection like we did last meetings, Madam Town Manager, is that correct?
Yes.
Okay, good. And then, of course, the annual town election is a week from Thursday, on May 15th. A month from Thursday, sorry, May 15th. Any public comment from the public? Let everybody find their, raise your hand in case they want to. And seeing none. Any public comment from the board? Also seeing none.
Oh, I have one.
Yes.
I use my real hand. Just a comment that I've been making most weeks, but this week I definitely wanted to thank school administrators, school staff, all the students, and also very much public safety. Last week was our first 5 days in school. We're on to our second week. There's so many new things that are occurring with the amount of parents that are using vehicle transportation versus busing. And so there's been all these traffic flow problems, and I've been extraordinarily impressed. There's been, I think it's the title, maybe traffic enforcement officer or somebody on scene at the high school every day, and constantly rerouting and reinventing the ways to pick up and drop off, to queue buses, and have just been working on adapting to a different kind of year. And there's obviously a lot of people working to make it work. And so I just wanted to thank everybody involved. It's been exciting to have the kids back into a rhythm. For those who returned, if you were hybrid, you had to return 5 or go full remote. So a vast majority of the town is back in school. And I know a lot of people have to do a lot of extra work. And it's been going well at our household, and I'm really appreciative of everyone's efforts. So thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, so we have an executive session to go to. So I would entertain a motion that we move into executive session and to adjourn after exiting the executive session. This executive session is pursuant to Mass General Law, Chapter 30, Section 21, Paragraph 3. which is to discuss strategy with respect to collective bargaining if an open meeting may have a detrimental effect on the bargaining position of the public body and the chair so declares it. This is concerning the Municipal Employees Union and the DPW Union.
So moved.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Second.
Okay. Roll call vote, Ms. Adams,
Aye.
Mr. Dwyer,
Aye.
Mr. Marino,
Aye.
Mr. Jeffries,
Aye.
and an aye from myself. Good night, everyone. Take care of yourselves. Take care of each other. We will see you on April 27th. Thanks.
Have a good night.
Good night.